I would, just before we do kick off, I'd like to acknowledge the Yagara and Turrbal people on the lands in which I'm meeting on today, and their elders past, present, and emerging. So I don't think I'm going to waste any more time on us and hand straight over to you, Adam. So thank you so much for making the time. Welcome.
Thanks. And we should clarify, it's the entire team behind this organization that's absolutely amazing and just rock stars. And any opportunity we get to inspire and help motivate the movement across the world. By the way, we're usually focused in Saskatchewan and Canada. But talking with Tara and others, I visited the Sydney Community Foundation as well when we were there on vacation. And I fit in visits with community foundations as much as I possibly can. So it sounds like you guys are doing so many things. And to set the stage, I wanted to provide a couple things that your state is very similar. They're called provinces in Canada, but your state and our state are very similar. We have a geographical area. I had to actually look it up. It takes us about 30 hours to get from one side of ours to another. So you might have us beat by about 10 hours or so, but our province is massive as well too. Couple of fun facts. We produce 34, we're called across the world, sometimes called the bread basket of the world. Our little province produces 34% of all the lentils in the world, 30% of all durum, 33% of all dry peas, 60% of all canary seed, 23%. If you ever have mustard, 23% chance that actually comes from our little province. And then the coolest one is 30% of all the potash in the entire world comes from our province. And so basically potash helps feed the rest of the crops and things like that. And so we are a massive producer of mining and agriculture and things like that. The one big difference though between our two areas, and I was telling the team when I got back from Australia, and Jonah's been to Australia. You spent a year there.
Yeah, I was in Perth. I was over in Western Australia, but absolutely loved my time there.
Yeah, so we have team members, and as I got talking with folks like Jonah, we realized there was no culture shock coming to Australia. Canada and Australia are ridiculously similar, and I did not realize how similar our countries are. So, anyways, the biggest difference is your state has 5.7 million based on the stats I could see. We actually only have 1.3 million in our state slash province. So you're about 5 times the population, but we're similar sized in actually geographic areas and things like that. So I don't think Donna's on yet.
Just like quickly, maybe similar to Tara as you did, we should just maybe acknowledge too, we're gathered on Treaty 4 territory in Saskatchewan, Canada. So this is the traditional homeland of the Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Lakota, Dakota, Nakota peoples, the homeland of the Métis Nation. And Canada has a little bit of a different history in terms of relationship between settlers and Indigenous and the treaties that kind of guide our relationship. And so Treaty 4 recently celebrated a couple of years ago, 250th anniversary of that enduring relationship. As the treaties say, as long as the sun shines, the river flows, and the grass grows. And so Community Foundation works to acknowledge that relationship and continue to build that partnership together to be stewards of the land that we're gathered on.
Yeah. Thanks, Jordan. Fun fact. Oh, actually, I got to limit fun facts because we only have an hour, and it is not even going to be. It is not going to be close to enough. We have so many exciting things. So, I wanted to level set with just like a few minutes of the Community Foundation world in Canada. So there are actually 200 of us across Canada. We're part of a similar network as Australia, actually. So very similar. We have annual conferences and sessions with different finance folks, and the CEOs all meet in different groups like that. So out of the 200, the top 5 actually hold, they're all over $1 billion in assets. So the big ones are behemoths of organizations. The largest now is approaching 3 billion in assets with 6,000 funds underneath it. And it's actually the oldest in Canada. It's 105 years old or so. Anyway, so we have a long history of community foundations in our country. Ours actually, we're top 12 out of the 200 or so. So we're not the biggest, but we're not the smallest. We're kind of in that mid-range. And fun fact, we're actually almost the exact same size as you folks. So you have, from last numbers I could see, about 170 million in assets. We're we're getting close to the 185 mark or so. You have granted out 7.1 million last year. We granted out like 7.3, and you supported over 300 charities. We're literally almost the exact same foundation at this point. Interesting to know, though, only 4 years ago, we were at about 90 million in assets. And so we have doubled our growth in about 3 years of growth, of substantial growth. And we are strapped to a rocket ship, and it is a hockey stick. And so I'm predicting we'll be about $1 billion organization by the year. I've shortened my estimates now, but by about the year 2035 to 2037, we will hit that. And I actually think it might be a little sooner than that. So I tell you that to kind of level set you. Oh, sorry. And my last point to level set this. And I'm going to do a little bit of talking at the start, and then I'm going to pass it to our team members that I'll introduce in a little bit here. So I got a few team members I'll pass it to. But we only 25 years ago, we have about a 60-year history in our organization. We had volunteers running it for the first 40 years or so. And only about 25 years ago or so that we really had the first staff member. We only had 2 million in assets. And so that's when we started to grow, was around the early 2000s. And this organization started to focus. We are now a provincial organization in nature, so very similar to Queensland Gives. You guys are a provincial or a state wide organization. We are very similar. And you can see our branding too is the Saskatchewan Community Foundation that matches that brand. So, okay, so I have a story I want to tell you, and then I'm going to get to planting some ideas about how our success has just taken us on a different path than what a traditional community foundation has seen as a path. And I actually have a peer group organization that I'm going to talk about to compare us to another organization that didn't take the path that we've taken. So first, though, when I joined a number of years ago, I had a number of conversations with the oldest and largest community foundation, which is the Winnipeg one. They're the ones getting close to 3 billion. And this fellow, Rick Frost, he's a CEO of that organization, and he started in the late 1990s. And the team has heard this like a million times, but in the 1990s, when he started, it was an $85 million community foundation. 22 years after he retired, it was a $1.2 billion organization that was producing grants of $35 to $50 million every single year, forever, built mostly through legacy funds. And in the 22 years, I've met with Rick a number of times, the former CEO, to get his secret sauce. How did he grow it from 85 to $1 billion or 1.2 billion in 22 years? And side note, we're going to do it in 18 or less. My goal is to beat Rick. But his entire secret sauce, out of all the conversations we've ever had, every time I've ever met with him, his secret sauce is relationships. And relationships is the only thing that our team has been hyper focused on. If you peel back the strat plan that we have, and we built an 18-year plan for our board back then. That was a little too much for the board members. So I still use the 18-year plan, but we have a 3 to 5 year plan for the board. So it's easier to comprehend. In board term, we have 6-year term limits, and anyways, a whole bunch of stuff like that. So it is interesting to know, though, that when you build a plan focused on relationships, those relationships turn into opportunities. And that is what we found. When we built this plan a number of years ago, we had these crazy ambitious goals, and we're only 3 years into it, and we're an entire year of our crazy ambitious plan. Literally an entire year we've already shaved off, and it hasn't not been a focus on donations. It has not been a focus on building funds or salesmanship or anything like that. It is being hyper focused on relationships, and that's what the rest of this, what do we got left, 50 minutes is about us telling you some of the crazy things that we've done. Not crazy, sorry. When board members hear that, or other strategically planned, and sometimes we make some mistakes, but strategically planned initiatives that are sometimes a little outside of the box that have paid off. And there's some things that we've done that have failed, but our board has been extremely supportive in allowing management to be flexible and to have those opportunities to dream and to try some things out. And so we've appreciated our board's ability to dream with us and to come along this journey. And it's fine. I will say if we had been a status quo community foundation, we would have been just fine. And I have an example of that in a second here. So the one piece that has really helped us too is focusing on relationships. Is we went from what most community foundations struggle with. We were the best kept secret. We had been the best kept secret for 50 some years, and I can confidently say we are no longer a secret. It is rare. When I used to tell folks when I joined 4 years ago that I worked at the community foundation, it was ridiculously rare to find anybody that knew what it was. When I called Jonah for a job, it was hard to explain, like, Jonah, I got a job for you. Here's this cool organization. You're really explaining it. Now it is actually flipped. We really started implementing this about 3 years ago. In only 3 years, it is actually rare to find anybody in our entire province that hasn't heard about the community foundation. And anyways, it has completely flipped that switch. So before we get into the weeds and before I pass it to Shauna, I do want to say that we've had a sister organization in our province or state here. And so 4 years ago, we were actually almost the exact same size. And I am talking almost to the $1 million mark. So we had a sister organization called there's 2 big cities. And by the way, Brisbane is a big city for you guys at 2 million people. Our big cities are like 300,000 people. So we're in one of the big cities of 300,000 people, not even compared to yours. But our big city is where we're based out of, and there's only 2 big cities in our province. So the other big city, which is actually they're I don't know 40,000 people apart from each other or so. So our cities are very similar. Our organizations actually started 1 year apart. We started in 1969. They started in 1970. We have grown exactly at the same pace to where 4 years ago we were both around the $90 to $95 million mark, and it very similar. And we've always grown like that for 50 years. I can tell you right now with confidence that our plan has far exceeded what we would have done without this plan. And the reason I can tell you that is because the other foundation, Saskatoon, has continued with the normal model and the normal consistency, I guess, and status quo, which is great. And they've grown from that 95 million to now they just ended with about 122 million under management. In that same exact period, in the same province, with a very similar team, we have been able to now grow to that 185 million mark, which shows that we, with some extra effort and focus on relationships, that has turned into, and if we can talk again in 5 years, that difference is going to be even more drastic. And I tell you that though, because it's not about the size of assets, it's about the impact. Our average, and this is my last fun fact before I pass it to Shauna, on average, for 50 some years, we're adding the average of 2 to 3 funds every year. When most of this team started 4 years ago, the average funds were about 6 funds a year that were being added. Since that plan, so 3 years ago, we added
24.
Yeah, 24 or so. We then, the year after that, it was up to 80 or so. Last year, we had 120 new relationships that formed, finalized deeds of gift, that signed new deeds with us. And this year, not even through the year, how many were we at right now?
I think last time I checked last week, we were at like 106.
So we're going to absolutely crush. And that goes from a foundation that was adding 3 to 5 to maybe 7. It was rare that we'd ever have a year with 10 funds or more, to now it's actually going to be rare that we have less than 100 within the first 6 months. And so I tell you that because it comes back to relationships. Most of those people are committing estate gifts. Most of those people are doing active raising. My young daughter, who's 12 years old, actually fundraises every year, and she has her own fund within our foundation. So we've truly become a foundation for literally everybody in our province. We are no longer the foundation for ultra high net worth people, which was the kind, if you did know about us, which was rare, you did know about us because you were ultra high net worth and you just thought it was just for rich people. Basically, we truly have become a foundation for every single person in our community. And so
Adam, it's Donna. Yeah. I'm just going to jump in and just say that we also tripled our staff. And it was all due to an anonymous donation that we received in 2018.
Yeah. Thanks,
right?
Donna.
The growth. Yeah.
And that came with the board's trust. And so with that gift, the board allowed us to front end this growth because it's risky thinking about hiring a staff member until you have the asset base to afford that. And so the board allowed us to truly front end that growth with it was a little risky, but luckily we had that anonymous donor that supported us through some funds that allowed us to try to front end that growth. So sorry, Dawn, I didn't know you were on the call. That's great. Okay, so Shauna, I'm gonna lead into some stories now of what relationship building has allowed us to do. And before we do that though, so Donna Ziegler is our CEO, and she keeps the wheels on this boat going and keeps all the board conversations and stuff going into growth. Myself, I'm Director of Finance and Strategy, so help lead the teams and all the neat ideas we're working on. And then Shauna she is the one that keeps all these pieces together behind the scenes. So all the finances, all those pieces is our dear Shauna okay. And Shauna's going to talk about something neat that's allowed us to help others.
Yeah, I take care of all of the things, the day-to-day stuff. But when you listen to what Adam said about the number of community foundations across Canada, when you think of 200 foundations, and there's really, when you look at the top larger foundations, that there's not very many. So it leaves a lot of foundations that are really small. They are operating with, 1 or 2 staff member, maybe even half a staff member position. And that limited staff are often expected to be experts in finance, governance, communications, technology, like your donor stewardship. So a few years ago, we noticed a pattern and we kept hearing challenges from these community foundations where they just needed help with things like financial reporting, bank reconciliations, audit prep, payroll, that kind of thing. So we've actually started a shared services program. So it's a cost recovery. It is set up that we are able to help foundations across Canada. And it really is kind of targeted for those smaller foundations that need the support, that aren't really able to fund a full-time finance manager, but we can step in and be that finance manager for them. For maybe, some foundations it's 5 hours a month, some it's like 20 hours a month. It really depends on the foundation's need. So what surprised us is that the value of these shared services has extended kind of beyond just the shared service community foundation that's receiving the benefit. We've actually have been able to learn from one another as well. We've shared best practices. We've created relationships across the country that honestly would not have existed otherwise. We've been able to help foundations access expertise that would have been difficult or even impossible on their own. One example, I guess, that kind of stands out is there was a foundation, they hired a part-time administrator, they had a full-time executive director. They were trying to build their local capacity. They wanted to keep all their day-to-day activities within the community, but they still needed that support with finance functions. So we were able to step in, be kind of their finance manager on a very part-time basis. They still kept control of everything at their local community foundation, but they're able to gain that expertise kind of when they needed it. So for me, that's really what shared services is about, where it's not about like centralizing all of the work onto our foundation. It's not about losing that local identity. And it's really not about making every foundation operate the same, because every community foundation really is unique and they really have different ways that they function. But it's just trying to figure out how we can do things better together and create more impact within your communities. That's really so this shared services program, we started, it's about 2.5 years ago now. And it grew from just having helping one foundation. Now we're about 12 community foundations across Canada that we support, and we've done presentations and talked to people. So I can see it even just growing even more in the next year or two as well. So.
And that's where, so thanks, Shauna. That's where it's really neat that as we had built capacity over the last couple of years, we've been able to look beyond just our borders. And so if you're looking at the map of Australia, it's basically like we help people all the way to the west coast of Australia, all the way to the east coast where you guys are. And so Shauna and her team, we've been able to level up our ability to help other community foundations. And I tell you that again, because it started with relationship building. It was building relationships, not just internally or with our donors, or it's building relationships with other community foundations. And anyways, yeah, thanks for sharing something, Shauna. Okay, we don't have Victor here today. He was going to tell a story, and maybe Donna, if you do, want to highlight the unique. So talking about partnerships, we wanted to highlight one around vital signs and a unique opportunity around granting that we're working on, just to plant some seeds with the LEJF one. Do you want to highlight that one, Donna?
I think the one piece about it is that we usually, we look to other community foundations to borrow ideas, to initiate them with them. This one came out of Toronto, the Toronto Community Foundation, and they had pooled resources and then brought in a select number of charities to decide where the pool of resources would go. They gave each charity that came into the room a pot of money for themselves, a small pot of money. Maybe it was 5,000 Canadian dollars, but maybe there was 200,000 for them to spend as a group on one project. But they were brought into the circle to decide together what the best use of those resources might be. So in Saskatchewan, we started something with our vital signs around food security. So looked at different charities that provided food security initiatives that we could invite into the circle to see how we might together be able to move the dial a little bit further. And so it hasn't happened yet, but we've selected different charities and are bringing them together at the end of them, I think in October. But they are going to be given through, and we had a private foundation that joined the community foundation and now is a fund with the community foundation. They've put certain resources towards this concept around food security. Then we went out and asked other donors, would they be interested in this sharing of a community grant back to a group of charities to try and focus on something like food security. We had a number of donors that were very interested, that decided, yes, this might be a good opportunity to see what the charities themselves can come up with, rather than us deciding where the resources should go. So you get 5 charities or 6 charities in a room, each know that they're going home with a certain amount of dollars anyways, but they get to decide within the room, listen to the projects and decide within the room, even if there's collaboration amongst each of the charities, that they might have a piece in the project and getting more collaboration between like-minded charities to come out with a better result, that we're all trying to do something special in community around a certain challenge. The food security one was our second challenge in the vital signs report that we do about every 3 years. It's really finding the pulse in the community, what's happening in the community. So we use that report. Food security was one that we decided to focus on, and that's kind of how, so we have about $250,000 that is going to go out into community based on food security, that these charities in the room will decide what that project's going to look like, and perhaps each charity is, maybe they're going to align their work so that they're more collaborative on the project. But they have to decide. We're not going to decide which charity is a winner. They have to decide amongst themselves how the outcome is going to happen.
Yeah, thanks, Donna. And that it goes back to relationships. We are building strong relationships with those charities where they trust us to come into a room, be vulnerable, because they're granting to themselves. We are not choosing who's getting that pot of money. It is the charities themselves choosing. So that came with a lot of trust and relationship building. But Donna mentioned the fund that's supporting it. That private foundation came with a history way before Donna and I. But they actually, about 2.5 years ago, joined us with a $7.5 million private foundation. They've closed their private foundation. They turned into a granting committee, basically. They dissolved it, though, and it turned into one of our biggest partnerships ever, again, through relationship building and showing that that we can be there for that specific organization in that case. And now we'll be able to help them level up their granting and their impact in our community through those partnerships. Okay, okay, thanks, Donna. Moving on to Riley, who actually is a second-year summer student with us. So not a full-time staff member, is a university student who was leading our summer student program. So through, we've built out a massive summer student program because, as many of you know, everything can't be falling on Tara's plate and team. We needed to do some of these unique initiatives. We didn't have time for the full-time staff because we're focused on partnerships and granting and charity outreach and all that and donor stewardship. And so with the students, we felt we could level up our organization, and we were able to do a lot of things that we wouldn't normally be able to do. And I have to admit, at a cost that wasn't the full-time staff member cost, and they're here for a couple of months. So anyways, Riley has taken, it's a 4-year program we've been running. We had 16 summer students this year, and which was a lot that we're gonna actually tone it down. 16 was a
For
little.
context, we're a full-time team of 16 staff.
Yes.
So we doubled in size over the summer months too.
was a lot. So anyways, next year it'll be 8 or 9. But okay, I'm gonna have Riley talk about how the impacts of the summer student program has helped the foundation just truly level up and punch above our weight class.
Yeah, so I guess our main role is obviously supporting the full-time staff, helping them wherever we can, taking things off their plate, because we know they're super busy. And we also get to do some fun and, as Adam says, crazy projects and campaigns.
Strategically
Yeah,
crazy.
Right. And so that's some super cool projects that we get to do over the summer months. One in specific that we do is our guerrilla marketing campaign. So completely untraditional ways of marketing. So we have students that go around our city and are door knocking on the busiest streets of Regina. And so not only are they, building relationships at the door, they're, talking to homeowners, saying what the community foundation is. And
Talk about how we prep them for that too.
yeah, we do a whole circuit of, things that you can expect at the door, what to say if, someone slams the door in front of you, things like that. So we prep them and then we send them out to really, it's a simple message on our signs, give where you live. Here's an example of a
These are
sign.
the lawn signs that you'd see popped up all over our city for a blitz. We call it a guerrilla marketing blitz. They have usually 2 sides. We've done different blitzes every year. They have similar types of messages, but fully student ran this entire program.
Yeah, so this campaign was in support of an anonymous donor. So that's kind of why that, the students are able to do this. And a simple message, give where you live. We're going to the door. We're not asking for donations. We're not asking for them to start a fund at the door. We're just communicating what the foundation is of legacy giving. So on the signs, it links to yourlegacyforever.ca. And the idea is just that everyone can be a donor in the city. So our students went around, they were door knocking on hundreds and thousands of doors in Regina to ask them to put up a lawn sign on their lawn. So free advertising, we were just saying, can we have a piece of your grass for our signs to go up? And so they went around and they sold out. So they got 500 people to say, yep, you can borrow my grass for the summer. And they went around on one day and they put all the signs up in Regina. So then people are obviously like, what just happened here? Like, why are there so many signs? Where did these come from? And are curious, people are talking about it. The city's talking about it. Look at these signs. And they link to our page and to the foundation. And so kind of a cool story.
And a custom page. So it's important to know our Sask Foundation, just like Queensland Gives, can be messy because you're just doing so much and you have lots to tell people. So this, we decided to clean it up, was a unique yourlegacyforever.ca. So a very specific brand. It all eventually told the same messages. But if you were going there, we could also track it. So we knew how successful it was, which we get thousands of visits. But you had one clear message about legacy giving, and it wasn't messy with all the other stuff on our normal foundation website.
Yeah, so I think that was just a huge awareness piece that, people were talking about not only what the signs were, but relating, the community foundation, that's what the signs mean. So I think a cool story too that came from our guerrilla marketing campaign was we would send out flyers when the campaign is over so that everyone in Regina got this flyer that basically explained what the campaign was. It was a reveal flyer. And so we had a, it came in their mailbox and they saw the flyer and looked into the foundation. They booked a meeting with the foundation and they ended up committing almost over $1 million to scholarship funds to support the field that they went through and got their degree from. So all of that started from a flyer that was in their mailbox from this crazy marketing campaign that our students did the past couple years.
Fundraiser?
Yeah. So then another fun event that we get to do is our.
Wait, you should know, you're just getting the tip of the iceberg. There are so many other projects behind the scenes. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. So we have a group of students that plan this event called the Friendraiser. So the Friendraiser is the largest charitable gathering that we have in our province. It brings together almost 100 charities from across of our province or our state of where we live, and is really a platform. It's kind of set up like a trade show style event. So they get a booth and a platform to talk about their charity and what they're doing, to share stories with donors that are in the room, with our board members, with other charities that are in the room. And again, it's all about that relationship building. So we have, charities that are able to, not only build relationships with the foundation, but build relationships with other charities. We have a lunch prior to the event that all the charities, get to be in one room. It's a once in a year opportunity where all the charities are in a room and able to, talk with each other and share ideas of collaboration and really just get to meet each other. We also have a lunch for our board members, again, building that relationship piece. This year's theme was rolling out the red carpet. So we had lots of fun. We had red carpet and we treated our board members like the VIPs they are. And so we really got to play onto our theme of, treating our board members like, stars in the community, treating our charities like stars in the community. And yeah, we had a good time playing on that theme.
Well, and she's not doing it justice, where we've had professional event planners come to the event who organize like the fanciest galas, same galas you'd have in your state, like ridiculously fancy. The students, where it is 98% ran fully by the students, not ran by full-time staff. We have had a professional event planner say it's one of the best events they've ever seen and delivered, and it blows their mind that it is literally, we are talking the fanciest details and like people deck out. And anyway, it is, Riley's not doing it justice at how perfect, they're not just setting up some tables. It is, and maybe we send you a video afterwards, but it is so empowering to see what university kids can do when we give them a little bit of freedom and give them a little bit of that leadway, and they can absolutely deliver. But again, it goes back to helping us build even stronger relationships across multiple different stakeholders.
And it is all the relationship building, because the Friendraiser is a free event too. So we're not charging charities to be there, making connections, amongst the sector. We're not charging donors to be there, and it's a Friendraiser, not a fundraiser. So charities aren't, looking for donations or asking people to tap their cards or checks. It is all just about the relationship building, having conversations. And, there's so many little pieces that the students plan together too, like bingo cards, where you have to go around and have conversations with different charities, or, connect with certain number of different groups and things like that. So it's all about having folks ideally come to the Friendraiser and walk away saying, I didn't realize there were so many charities in the community that I hadn't heard about that are doing amazing things day to day to improve our quality of life in the province.
And before, I know you didn't have this on your list to talk, but we also have started hosting smaller ones in smaller communities. So we have a city of 30,000, 40,000 people. We did like a little mini, it wasn't as fancy as the big one, but it was like a little mini one for their community. And so it's a fun fact. We also have a full project plan that can be shared with other community foundations. I think there's 6 or 7 community foundations across Canada that are hosting these things based on this cool project plan that we're willing to fully share and hand out. Okay, sorry. You have one more thing.
I was just going to say too that, what was I going to say here?
Charity PDA?
Oh, I guess for the Friendraiser, that it was kind of cool this year too. We got a lot of like media coverage that came out. So again, just more marketing, more advertising for the foundation. I think we had over 4 news places in Regina that came out, and then we did, you know, some articles and things prior to. So I think that also just, you know, the event's growing, and so the awareness is growing, you know, more media coverage for the foundation too. And then, yeah, we also plan other like smaller events. So we do like lunch and learn events. We host a couple that are, you know, lunch and like learning about the community foundation, about how, you know, a partnership with the community foundation can benefit like charities. And then we also do a charity PD day. So we invite charities to come out. And it's really, again, just a relationship building, and also, you know, leveling up the charitable sector. So we bring in experts from, you know, marketing areas, from media areas, from financial areas, I guess. Our mayor of the city came out last year too to talk about the charitable sector. And so, you know, it's just a really, and again, another opportunity for charities to connect with each other, but also to learn about the opportunities in the charitable sector and how other people are there, you know, to support them and to help them and learning opportunities.
So it goes back, as you can see, there's a theme again. It's about connecting people and charities, not doing it just selling the community foundation model the whole time. It's about showing that we truly can be a partner for the entire industry and the entire sector. And so Jonah can talk about a billion things as well, but I gave him a list of a few things to talk about. So Jonah is head of our partnerships, basically, and help and truly reaches out. He drives more miles than most people I've seen. So anyways,
Yeah,
Jonah.
all around a great province. And you know, so there's kind of a few different things I want to highlight here. First, kind of you know, building off of what Riley talked about is support for charities. And so, of course, there's the one side of the community foundation that a lot of charities are familiar with, and that's us granting out dollars that are coming from the donor advised funds, the legacy funds, or the endowments that the community foundation holds. And so that's, you know, $7 million going out 300 plus charities every year. But there's now, you know, in the last few years, I think it's now 50, 60 different charities now across our province that now have their own funds at the community foundation and are working directly with the community foundation, whether that's establishing their own endowments for operational sustainability, whether it's we're supporting them through back-end donation processing, what we call flow-through funds. So the community foundation then accepting, processing donations, and then getting the funds back to the organizations. Or a new program that you know, other community foundations across Canada have been doing for a little while, for pooled reserve investments. So letting other charities contribute some of their reserve dollars as part of our investment portfolio to a benefit from the economies of scale, the diversification of our portfolio, and ultimately just put more money back into the charitable sector.
Well, I just want to pause on that one. It is important to know that our board has trusted us. So I still remember when Donna and I went to the board and pitched them that we want to take, because lots of foundations have minimums of 10,000, 50,000, some have 250,000 in Canada as a minimum. We went to them and say, let's remove, ours used to be 10,000, which was one of the lower ones. We actually eliminated all of that. Somebody can start a fund now for $5. We don't allow them to grant out until they hit 10,000 out of a legacy fund, but we have truly opened this up. And some of the concerns were about all the administration behind it. Our rationale to the board as we were talking about it is, if we are truly taking a long-term stance as an organization where we're not thinking about the next year or 3 years or 5 years, we're thinking about the next decade or the next lifetime or lifetimes beyond that, that we should truly be a foundation for everyone. So I went back to my, like I mentioned earlier, my daughter, who's 12 years old, literally raises $1,000 every year through lemonade stands and garage sales and stuff like that. And we've allowed her, we will have her relationship for another, hopefully 90 years or so, where my daughter throughout her lifetime will contribute to that legacy fund, will likely leave an estate gift. Like, we are starting people without any restrictions. And so we honestly, lots of the stuff we're doing wouldn't be without the support of the board that allowed us to truly open up our policies and really look at, do we need some of these things? And that's just one example. There's a whole bunch of other examples of policy changes that helped us have the freedom to dream.
Well, another one that took a little convincing is what we launched a no fee fund.
Oh yeah, that took a lot of convincing.
So the whole idea was that typically with those flow through funds, with donations coming into the foundation, into say a charities fund, and then being granted back to the charity when they need for capital projects or whatnot, typically we had a 2% fee on that, and that was covering our operations as a charity. What we looked at was ways that we could just help streamline charitable giving in the sector. And so we launched these no fee funds. There's no admin fee from the community foundation for charities to start a fund, and to be an alternative to some of the other online tools that are out there that are charging them 3, 4, 5% to process donations. So we will process their donations, keep that money in the local charitable sector, and no admin fee. Now, behind the scenes, the community foundation, for the few weeks or the month that those funds are held at us before they're granted out to the charity, they're included in our investment portfolio. And we're earning a little bit on the daily closing balance. And actually, historically, that's more than the 2% that we'd be charging to the charities anyway. So it's a kind of a, on the back end, a financial win for the community foundation, but it's more so a win for these charities that now can go to donors and say 100% of your donation is going back to support our organization in partnership with the Saskatchewan Community Foundation. So that's been a huge relationship builder.
And the biggest part to that, we've backed that with a reserve now. So we promised the board that as we built up excess funds from when we hold on to that cash for a little bit, that it would not be used for operations. It would go into reserve. Because if we have a down market year, we're guaranteeing all those funds. And so if there is a down market, we have to ensure that all, anyway, so we can get to more details, but basically the risk was at the very start, and it's only been a year, and it has paid off way beyond it goes back to relationship building. Imagine going to your community saying, we will help you process all of your charitable donations as a donor or as a charity with no fees. It has opened the doors where somebody might start a no fee fund, but it turns into legacy conversations and estate conversations. And again, it really goes back to relationship building.
Yep. And so the next kind of, focus, obviously working with all the charities to level up their capacity and to support the amazing work that they're doing throughout the province. We also saw that there was a need though with communities, with municipalities themselves. Saskatchewan is a little bit unique in Canada. Compared to other jurisdictions, we have the most municipalities per capita of any jurisdiction in Canada.
It's not a bragging right. We like
no,
that's too much administration.
There, in our province of 1.3 million people, there are 440 urban municipalities, and that ranges from, as Adam said, there's the two largest cities of around 250, 300,000 people. But then there are villages galore of under 500, villages of 50 people, villages of 10 people. And so there are so many municipalities across our province, everyone trying to maintain their unique, heritage, identity, the history of those communities. And we saw that there was a need to support there. And so we worked with the Municipalities Association in our province. We worked with our provincial government, and we launched a program that is the first of its kind in Canada. I don't know if we looked internationally when we were talking about this.
We didn't look internationally.
First of its kind in Canada for sure, where we're supporting municipalities again with pooled reserve investment. The Community Foundation now having 180 some million dollars that we've been trusted with, diversified, professionally managed investments. Whereas a village of 100 people just doesn't have that capacity. A village of 100 people a lot of the times has their reserves tucked away in a savings account at the local credit union or the bank, and are earning a fraction of a percentage on those reserves that they need to keep for sound financial management. Whereas the Community Foundation, our 5-year average is over 9%. So we see the potential to try to again put more money back into our province. And so this new partnership, the first ever approved investment for municipalities through our provincial government, this partnership with the Municipalities Association, is unlocking potential that we're working with communities now of all sizes in our province. We have the villages of 100 people that have put $10,000 into this program and are benefiting. And then we have we recently had a city of about 6,000 people put in over $5 million of their reserves into this program. And so we're working with communities of all sizes. And at the end of the day, it is all about helping them pool their reserves with the economies of scale of the community foundation to put more money back into our community. And it's the relationship building that comes from that. Now, all of these communities that are learning about the community foundation now, about this pooled reserve investment, are now asking us, hey, we're looking to build a new hockey rink. Can you help with the donation processing? Or hey, we have a donor in town, or we have someone in town that wants to leave a legacy gift to the community. Can you set up a fund for them? And so the number of new relationships have come about, and legacy gifts even from something that the pooled reserve investment is more transactional. Saskatchewan, as Adam kind of did in his intro, is heavily farmland based. You drive outside of the city and it's just beautiful flat land of canola, wheat fields, flax, rye, barley, etc., etc. And so farmland is kind of part of the fabric of our province. And so again, trying to think outside of the box in ways that we could engage folks, we've launched a new program for donations of farmland. Now, typically with most donations, and I assume Australia is in a similar boat, when a charity accepts a non-cash gift, it's tax receipted for an appraised value. The charity accepts it, sells it, and then takes the cash proceeds to benefit the community. With the donation of farmland, there's farms now across our province that have been in these families for century farms. They've been passed down the generations from the time that settlers came and were starting their families off here in the early 1900s. And so there's much more sentimental value to farmland than there is with most other assets that folks would look to donate. So because of that, we have a new program for donations of farmland where the community foundation will accept title to the land, hold the land in trust, continue to rent it out so that local farmers can continue feeding the world using that land as part of their farming operations. And it's the rental income then that goes into their legacy, the donors' legacy funds, and forever supports their community. So we just had a donor, for example, that donated a quarter section of land, 160 acres or so. And this land, they got a tax receipt through a new program with a lifetime beneficiary. And we're not going into the weeds with everything, but essentially, again, we're the first charity in Canada to do this. But we can accept a donation of farmland. Title is transferred during their lifetime. We signed an agreement with the donor saying they can use the land for the rest of their lifetime. It's a lifetime beneficiary agreement. And then upon their passing, it reverts to the community foundation. But we're all the owner, so it doesn't go through the estate process. It can't be contested. And they get the tax benefit of the donation during their lifetime. So this donor set up this fund. 50% of the net rental proceeds are going to go to support scholarships at her alma mater. 50% are going back to her hometown to support the community that she grew up in. So we're creating these new pathways that didn't exist previously for folks to give back to their communities and to be a part of the fabric of our province.
Well, and on that one, I truly think this is where the board and our entire team have been open to opportunities and open to seeing those opportunities and allowing the board to trust us in that. And so through that, I truly believe in the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to be one of the largest landowners in most of Saskatchewan, if not Canada. The program has potential to drastically grow. Anyways, we're working on deals that are $30 million of land and some massive deals right now. And it became very clear that farmers in our province didn't have especially if they don't have successors, didn't have a way to have their family's legacy continue on. And we are the perfect model for that. So we wanted to tell you that story at the end here. We have one more story. We just wanted to tell you that though, because it's important to stay open and allowing, especially lots of you I know are board members, to truly being open to allowing your executive to dream and to see where those opportunities are. It may not be exactly like that, but it's important. So my last one, Jenna wasn't able to join us, but I have Trina, who's also been involved in like legacy giving forever. So we have what we found, Okay, quick fun story. Shauna got a call 3 years ago. Shauna, was it? And this person calls us up and says, I forget exactly what it was, but or Shauna, do you remember? Anyway,
Well, basically, they're like, "Oh, I'd like to transfer securities. Oh, and I also like, I have you in my will." And I was like, didn't say it to her, but like, really? Like, I had no record of this. Like, we don't even know that this person, but she had communicated it to somebody, and that communication got lost in staff transition and whatever. So
and so, yeah,
that's
we found that there wasn't just her, there might have been others. And so this was like maybe a decade ago. She had told somebody off the cuff and it wasn't in our system. And we're like, oh my goodness, somebody's leaving us a wonderful gift through an estate, but we didn't have a way of tracking it. So in the last couple of years, we've now formalized the entire program into what we call now the Legacy Circle. And I know you don't run the Legacy Circle, but
Yeah, I don't run the Legacy Circle, but yeah, no, I work with Jen and I worked in Legacy Giving for a while. So yeah, so really we're just really giving opportunities for people to think about leaving a gift in their will. So really by promoting, we do have online wills, partnership with Epilogue. We're also providing a legacy planner that actually gets people thinking about planning their estate. And these legacy planners were donated also by an anonymous donor. And so we give these out everywhere we go. We're building relationships with allied professionals, so financial advisors, lawyers, just to really share more about, hey, let's talk about this, plan your personal stuff just in case something should happen. And then if you want to talk more about leaving a gift in your will, definitely come to us and have that conversation.
I did have that on my bingo card, so thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
So this is an example of this. This doesn't really help the foundation at all if you really peel back the layers. But this is version 3 now. We've gone through multiple state lawyers and lots of people have helped us. It's a supplement to a will is what we call it. But strategically, we've now printed 3,000 or 4,000 of these. 3,000 or 4,000 of these have gone to different citizens all across our province. And strategically, at the very back, there's a little bit about like, hey, after you filled out this booklet, have you thought about leaving a legacy to the community? And so it again goes back to multiple strategies on building relationships and planting seeds. And so I'm glad you brought that up. And legacy,
Sorry.
And I was gonna say, I think one of my favorite parts about, after people create a fund with the foundation is having a legacy circle celebration
yeah.
that we have. And it's twice a year. It's very informal. We have little snacks and food out, but it's just really an opportunity for people to meet other people like-minded. And then everyone is able to actually stand up and share their story, about why they left a fund with the foundation. So it's really a heartwarming, amazing event. It doesn't cost much, and it just really brings community together. So that's something that also that we do for stewardship.
Okay.
I was gonna say too, I think with like Legacy Circle too, it's about maintaining those relationships. It's about nurturing them and really making the people that are leaving an estate gift feel special and maintaining that throughout and then honoring their legacy after they pass as well.
And that has spread into just without even really strategically outlining it. It just spreads into, hey, I feel like a warm blanket has surrounded me. I'm going to now tell my friends and my family. And we talk about this snowball that like, we need a bigger mountain because it's turning into an avalanche of just positivity and people wanting to share in this movement. And it's a movement. It's more than just a community foundation. It is truly a movement in our community. And so anyways, I promised I'd leave it.
One more thing.
Okay.
Just
I'm so excited to tell you all the stuff.
We've talked so much about the relationship building side, and I think if I can add one more piece, it's just the idea too of the community foundation showing up. We are 100 times more present in community than we were a number of years ago. And that's whether, it's the students that are at the farmers market with the table talking with folks as they come by to buy their fresh produce. It's being at different events in the community and representing the community foundation. But it's also when a donor calls us, from a village, an hour and a half south, driving out to meet the donor at home, and showing up in these places. And so the more that we've been actively in community and showing up in the different places that people would expect the community foundation to be, the more trust that builds, because it shows how committed we are to being there for the province and to supporting folks where they're at.
Well, and that again comes to just last point is it's come from the board allowing us that freedom. Without that freedom and without Donna's freedom, like we couldn't be doing any of this stuff. And so I think the moral of the story is, yes, it's focused on relationships, but it also has been a supportive board and management team. Everybody is paddling in the same direction. By the way, I don't know if some of our phrases go across to Australia, but I'm assuming they're close. But okay, Tara, we are.
I'm just gonna. Yes, we're
Yeah.
so close to the end, and I'm mindful that people will potentially jump off. But there's there's a question in the chat. Thank you, Margaret. I guess I'll firstly iterate her gratitude to all of you and all of your team, and I can just feel the passion and the energy, and a lot of it does translate beautifully. So thank you. But Margaret's question is, can you explain the foundation's structure and governance that has allowed you to do this, or is that I don't think that's a 4-minute question, but give it a go.
Make it super quick. It's not like Sydney.
Yep.
We're more like Sydney on the governance structure, and I don't know if they're on the call, but it's very similar.
Yeah,
to
Loredana's
Sydney.
on the call. So Sydney Community Foundation structure. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And so it's less like and we won't get into the details, but I know you have a trust organization and you basically have like 2 groups you kind of report to. We're more similar to the Sydney governance model is the easiest way to explain it.
Okay. Excellent. And maybe there's a diagram or something that you might be shareable that we could share with the group after the fact, potentially. So has anyone else got any questions in these last remaining minutes? I can't see any hands up, I don't think. Oh, yes, Craig. No, yes, Craig. Craig's from the Public Trustee, so welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Tara. Good morning. That was awesome to hear all that information. Probably not for today, but I'd love to catch up with you guys just to talk about the admin side and how all that fits together with sub-funds and how the funding of those and funding of projects go across donation-wise and things like that from a sub-fund perspective. So would really love to have a chat to see how that works. Probably not today and don't need an answer today, but I'll reach out at another point in time.
Yeah, you bet. We're always open for a conversation, and I just put the email in the chat there. I'd like you for that question. I'd like you pass you probably to Shauna, but yeah, 100%. Reach out. We truly believe in this movement, and so the more that we can help this movement across the world, we're all game. Yeah.
Amazing. There's another question. And yeah, we'll any information that I receive, I'll make sure I share with the group. But how do you market to different audiences for different products? For example, what is the most successful way to connect with the farmers about legacy giving is the question.
Yeah, a great question. And I think it's really just tailoring our communications and where we are to the audience we're trying to reach. So when we talk about like the farmland donation program, we were at the largest farm shows in our province. And so in July, there's a massive outdoor farm show that was out there 3 days talking with farmers. There's the Canada's largest ranching and cattle show is in our city in November. And we have a booth there all 5 days talking with folks as they go by. So we're showing up at the events where the conversations can start. It's about building some of the partnerships. And so around farmland donations, we know that there's financial advisors and farm succession planning advisors that are working with clients. So it's working with those advisors to do lunch and learns for their offices, so that if they're working with families that don't have a farm succession plan, maybe they're thinking of the community foundation, or they're inviting us. We just did a town of, I don't know, Humboldt's 4,000, 5,000 people. Yeah. And we just did a session for 50 people that came out
with lawyers and accountants.
With the trusted partner offices that helped us get us.
We also customize materials too. So this one is just focused on farmland. It tells the same messages of how our foundation works, but it's hyper focused just on farmland. But we have one. This booklet is just for charities. So if we're talking to charities, it is hyper focused on what it is to look like as a charity partner. And so there's we have one for donors, we have one for professional advisors. We have found that different target groups, not target, that's a bad word for it, different stakeholders have different ways of
Messaging,
working with
yeah.
with different messaging and different. So we have
Yeah.
been hyper diligent on really making sure our brand. We have different trade show booths depending on where we are. So we've spent a good chunk of money on. We have a farmland trade show booth. We have a Suma Invest trade show booth. We have a Your Legacy Forever trade show booth. And so depending what the audience is, we actually take different materials, different backdrops, different pop-up banners to all of that, because we know not everybody is similar and everybody might be looking for a little different messaging and little different ways of working with the community foundation. So
And I think it's also not the community foundation showing up alone. Oftentimes,
Oh.
with a lot of these unique initiatives we're doing, we're showing up with
Yeah.
partners.
Yeah.
So for the farmland donation program, there's another charity in our province that was already doing farmland donations for 20 years. We entered into an MOU with that other organization to work together on farmland donations. So now it's the two of us at these shows together talking with farmers, an organization that already has connections in the farming community, helping us to share this message. Or with other kind of initiatives where like the municipalities, we're working with the association, the provincial government, and so we're actively looking at partnerships and ways that we can help to be out there in community with voices that people already trust.
Yeah.
I can see people are starting to drop off. I think everyone is, but I know that we could easily fill another couple of hours just learning from you. So thank you, Trina, Adam, Shauna. We have our own beautiful Shauna in our office, so it's nice that there's another incredible Shauna on the other side of the world. Riley, Jonah, and Donna, thank you so much for your time. And I hope everyone on the call today got something from this. I know I certainly did, and yeah, ideas are firing. So we'll share any other materials that we receive. Just really heartfelt gratitude to you all just for being so open, so inclusive, so collaborative. There's a lot of similarities between our states, or province v state. So yeah, so please accept our heartfelt gratitude for your time today, and thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank
folks.
you. Have a great day.
Okay.
See you, folks.
Bye.
Thanks.